She stood there in 4-inch heels and cheap confidence, one manicured hand pressed to the gold-trimmed glass of my hotel entrance. "Sorry, sweetheart," my sister Tessa sneered. "This place is for guests, not girls who still live on expired credit cards." She laughed, tossing her bleach blonde hair like she'd just cracked the world's wittiest joke. Beside her, our mother shifted closer and whispered, "Please don't make a scene, honey. You've embarrassed us enough. My name is Ava Sinclair, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been erased in plain sight by the same people who watched you bleed for your dreams?" I stood there in silence, dressed in a simple black suit. No logos. No flash. Just quiet power. They didn't recognize it. They never did. Tessa moved to block me fully, heels clicking, voice louder now. "Why don't you run along, Ava? I'm sure the red line has a seat with your name on it." She laughed again. I didn't blink. That's when the front doors unlocked with a soft hiss. And he stepped out. Dante Vega, 6'5", ex-military, head of security for the Sinclair Grand. My security chief. Loyal to the bone. He walked toward us with purpose. A cold precision in every step. He stopped just behind my sister and said calmly, "Ma'am, I need you to move. You're obstructing entry to a private event." Tessa turned, annoyed. "I'm with my mother and we're meeting the GM. Dante tilted his head. "No, you're not. The owner's already inside." Mother scoffed. "And who exactly owns this place?" Dante glanced at me, then stepped aside, and I walked past both of them, straight through the doors. No words, no fury, just silence, laced with revelation. Tessa stammered, "Wait, Ava." I turned around. "Just once. You didn't see me when I was starving," I said. "Don't look now that I'm feasting." Then I disappeared into the marble lobby. The security team closed the doors behind me, and outside, my mother's face cracked first. Tessa's voice raised, loud, desperate. But it was too late, because family blindness doesn't come with a refund. And in this building, every single square inch was mine. The second the door shut behind me, the noise outside turned into a muffled hum, like shame pressed up against soundproof glass. Inside, the lobby gleamed. Black marble floors, crystal chandeliers, fresh-cut orchids on every surface. The Sinclair Grand wasn't just a hotel, it was proof of everything I built when they weren't looking. My assistant, Claire, greeted me at the elevator with her tablet in one hand, earpiece in the other. "They still don't know who you are?" she asked quietly, eyes flicking to the security feed on her screen. I shook my head. They never even asked. Up we went, to the penthouse floor, my private residence above the hotel. Floor-to-ceiling glass, a skyline that pulsed with money and motion, and in the center, a long table set for 10. Tonight's event? Investor dinner. CEOs. Partners. People who saw me. People who didn't ask for permission to respect me. I slipped into my office just before the guests arrived. Checked my inbox. One new message. Subject line, guest complaint, blocked entrance. From Dante. He'd filed the incident already. Documented. Stored. Logged as harassment. I forwarded it to legal. Because Tessa and my mother hadn't just mocked me, they'd obstructed my guest's path into private property. And this wasn't a holiday dinner. This was a corporation. I let the thought sit. Let it burn. An hour later, the dinner was in full swing. Glasses clinking. Warm laughter. And just as I stood to give my welcome toast, my phone buzzed. Claire again. "They're still downstairs," she murmured. "Tessa's trying to name-drop your mother to get past security. Says she's family of the owner." I smiled. I clicked the mic and tapped my glass. "Before we begin," I said to the table of power players, "I'd like to share something personal." Their eyes locked on mine. Every face attentive. I grew up in a family that measured success by how many zeros were on someone else's paycheck. I was told I was too sensitive, too ambitious, too foolish. I paused. But tonight, we eat in the building I own, that I designed, that I bled for. And somewhere downstairs, The same people who called me an embarrassment are begging to be let in. A soft ripple of laughter. I raised my glass to building what they said you never could, and then watching them choke on the silence you leave behind. The toast echoed like thunder. And downstairs, my mother finally called. I didn't answer. Let her sit with the doorman and realize the girl they ignored at the dinner table now owns the table, and the dining hall, and the damn building. By midnight, they were still downstairs. Tessa had gone from smug to seething, pacing the sidewalk like a caged animal in designer heels, her phone pressed tight to her ear. My mother sat rigid in the lobby, arms crossed, lips pursed, eyes darting every time the elevator chimed. I watched it all unfold on the security feed from my penthouse balcony, champagne in one hand, silence in the other. They've been down there for almost 4 hours, Claire said beside me, flipping through camera angles. Do you want me to have Dante escort them off the property? I stared at the screen, then shook my head. No. Let them sit. Because this wasn't just about blocking me from my own door. It was about every single year they tried to block me from my future. The Christmas where Tessa laughed when I couldn't afford plane tickets home, said I probably couldn't get PTO from that little hobby job. The birthdays where my mother bought her gifts wrapped in luxury and handed me self-help books about redirecting energy. The time I got my first round of angel funding and Tessa posted a TikTok mocking people who beg for money to build fake companies. They never asked about the 2 a.m. meetings, the investors who bailed, the 19-hour days, the near-bankrupt months. They only noticed when it was easy to doubt me. But now? Now I had my name carved into the cornerstone of the very empire they couldn't enter. Claire glanced up from her tablet. Your mother just asked the concierge for the owner's name. I laughed. And she's staring at the paper like it's in a foreign language. I leaned forward, watching the footage. My mother reading the document, her eyes moving left to right, then stopping. Ava Sinclair. Her mouth parted slightly. She looked up, looked around the hotel, and for the first time in my life, I watched recognition dawn. Real, raw, burning recognition. Not pride, not remorse. Shock. The kind that breaks something. The kind that makes years of denial collapse in one brutal second. She reached for her purse. Tessa stormed out into the night. Neither of them said goodbye. Back upstairs, I turned to Claire. Clear their names from the guest list. Not just tonight. Forever. Claire nodded. Consider it done. And just like that, the last remnants of permission, the kind I used to beg for, were gone. This was my space. My sanctuary. And they weren't welcome here. Not now. Not ever again. The next morning, a handwritten note was slid under my office door. Thick ivory paper, my mother's floral perfume bleeding through the envelope like guilt with a scent. Dearest Ava, I didn't know. If I had, well, things would have been different. I was trying to protect you from disappointment, not hold you back. Proud of you. Truly. Let's talk. Love, Mom. I read it once. Twice. Let it sit like ash in my hands. If she'd known... No, she did know. She just didn't believe I was capable of more than failure. And when I proved her wrong, she didn't apologize. She panicked. I walked the note to the fireplace in the lounge, watched the edges curl, blacken, and turn to smoke. Because some apologies are just smoke signals sent too late from a ship that watched you drown. Claire stepped in minutes later. Your mother just tried to make a lunch reservation under the name Sinclair. Do you want me to block her? I raised an eyebrow. No. Let her come. Claire blinked. You're inviting her? No, I said. I want her to walk into the dining room and see the portrait. Because hanging at the center of our Michelin-starred restaurant, framed in steel, 12 feet tall, was the photo Forbes had run last month. Ava Sinclair, 32, youngest woman in state to own a private hospitality empire. It wasn't ego. It was armor. It was what she ignored for years, now immortalized under track lighting and velvet walls. Sure enough, the cameras caught her at 1:07 p.m., walking into the dining room like she belonged. Pausing. Seeing the portrait. Stopping. Her face collapsed, not in grief, not in awe, but in something deeper. The horror of realizing history was written without her. She sat, ordered tea, never drank it, left in 5 minutes. That night, I took the elevator to the roof. The sky glittered like a ceiling of diamonds, and everything below pulsed with the heartbeat of the city I now owned a piece of. Claire joined me with a tablet in hand. "Just got the quarterly numbers," she said. "We're up 32%. I smiled. "You know what to do." She nodded, already dialing legal. "New trademark filing for Sinclair Group International going in tonight. And the family trust? Finalized. Your name only. You hold the strings now." I took a sip of wine, looked out over the skyline. The girl they silenced now held the deed to everything they dismissed. And for the first time, the past couldn't reach me. The invitations went out in gold-foiled envelopes. Grand opening. Sinclair Residences, a legacy of luxury. A private launch for our newest property. 30 floors of skyline suites, curated elegance, and one silent message etched into every polished surface. "I made this. Without you." We invited influencers, real estate moguls, fashion editors, and a select list of press. Not a single family member received an invitation. But Tessa still showed up. Not as a guest. As someone's plus one. She clung to the arm of a man from a mid-tier lifestyle blog, smiling for the cameras like nothing had ever cracked. Her dress screamed designer. Her presence screamed desperation. Claire intercepted her at the elevator. "This is a private guest list." Tessa smiled, baring teeth. "Oh, I'm not staying long. Just here for support." She made eye contact with me across the atrium, waved like we were sisters again. I didn't wave back. Instead, I walked past her, head high, flanked by 2 partners and a city council member who just approved our zoning for the next location. She watched me like a stranger watches a comet. Beautiful, untouchable, dangerous. She tried again during the cocktail hour. Cornered me by the sculpture garden, fake champagne in hand. "You've made your point," she said. "So, can we move on now?" I blinked. "Move on from what, exactly? You mean the part where you blocked me from entering my own property? Or the decade of condescension before that?" She rolled her eyes. "You're still so dramatic." "No," I said, smiling. "I'm deliberate. There's a difference." Then I stepped around her. I didn't need to raise my voice. Because the marble, the glass, the logo printed across every velvet napkin, it was all louder than she'd ever been. That night, I stood beneath the chandelier in the main hall, the centerpiece of a launch. Flashbulbs, handshakes, whispered congratulations. Someone handed me a mic. I took it. "For years," I said, voice clear, steady, "I was told I was too much, too ambitious, too emotional, too naive to play in the big leagues. But here's the truth they never told me. Too much is exactly what it takes." The room erupted in applause. And outside the crowd by the exit, Tessa was already walking away. Not escorted. Not ejected. She simply understood. The empire wasn't hers. And this time, she couldn't block the door. 2 days after the launch, a floral arrangement appeared at the concierge desk of the Sinclair Residences. Massive, overdone, dripping with white lilies and gilt. No card. But I didn't need one. Only my mother sent apologies too expensive to carry real meaning. Claire texted me a photo. "Want me to trash it?" "No," I replied. "Donate it. Send it to the hospice downtown." If she wanted to give something away, let it matter for once. That night, I got a message request. Unknown number, but I recognized the tone instantly. "You made your point, Ava. You've punished us enough. But you can't rewrite history just because you've got money now. Family is still family."
Mom.
I stared at the screen for a while. Let the old reflex rise. The guilt, the urge to explain myself, to shrink back into the good daughter who apologized just for existing too loudly. But I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because power doesn't argue. It outlasts. I turned off my phone. The next morning, the Sinclair Grand hosted a city development summit. Mayors, planners,
Investors.
real people with real stakes in the city's future. I stood at the podium in the main ballroom. The same room Tessa once tried to block me from, and presented our next phase, a co-op program for marginalized youth to learn real estate development, tech, and luxury hospitality management. Fully funded. Fully staffed. Success, I said to the room, isn't just the view from the penthouse. It's who you pull up with you. Standing ovation. Not one person in that room remembered my sister, or my mother, or the years they laughed at the idea of me. And if they did, they knew better than to mention it now. After the summit, Dante approached me with a quiet smile. Your mother's at the front desk. Says she has something to return. I didn't even pause. She's not on the guest list. He nodded. Thought so. And just like that, she was turned away by the man who once opened the door for me when she tried to block it. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't cruelty. It was protocol. Because once upon a time, I stood outside this building, underestimated, unseen, unwanted. Now, I was the one who decided who got to come inside. The next strike came quietly. Tessa filed a claim, a flimsy attempt at defamation, citing emotional distress, reputational harm, and intentional exclusion from family wealth. She claimed I used my business to publicly humiliate her. She attached screenshots of news articles, my speech from the opening, even photos from the gala. It was laughable, until it wasn't. Because what Tessa lacked in sense, she made up for in shamelessness. And sometimes that can be dangerous. My legal team flagged the filing before I even saw it. Claire came into my office, tablet in hand, face unreadable. She's trying to drag this into court. Says you're weaponizing your wealth. I leaned back in my chair, slow.
Funny.
I thought I was just minding my own empire. We responded with precision. The footage from the hotel entrance, pulled from archives. The security logs, time-stamped. Her attempt to storm the launch party, documented. Her online posts mocking entrepreneurs, especially women, including me, collected. We filed a countermotion, not just for dismissal, but for damages. Within 3 days, her claim was dropped. And her attorney, a second-rate social climber who once begged for a tour of my penthouse, quietly withdrew. Claire came into my office after the call.
Done, she said.
Your sister's officially barred from bringing civil claims against you without prior review. Judge signed it this morning. I nodded, slow. Good. Because I'm done being her stepping stone. That weekend, I hosted a charity gala on the rooftop, proceeds for women in tech, entrepreneurship grants, housing reinvestment. The press ate it up. I gave interviews. Talked legacy. Talked lineage. Not bloodline, but belief line. The people who raised me weren't in my family tree. They were in my boardroom. In my bullpen. The people who saw me and never asked me to shrink. And as cameras flashed and violins played under the city lights, I stepped to the podium one last time. I was told I'd embarrass the family, I said. They were right. I did. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. But not because I failed. Because I outgrew the smallness they tried to wrap me in, and I didn't look back. Flashbulbs. Applause. A name whispered with respect. Ava Sinclair. The woman they tried to block from the lobby. Now owned the skyline they had to look up to see. It ended the way all empires begin. Quietly. No headlines. No confrontation. Just a shift in gravity that couldn't be undone. Tessa moved to another city. Phoenix. She changed her last name on LinkedIn, started a podcast no one listened to, and stopped showing up at holidays. My mother sent a final email. I hope you're proud of what you've built. I just wish you didn't feel the need to shut us out to do it.
Mom.
I didn't respond. Because I didn't shut them out. They closed the door themselves and laughed while they did it. Now I just had the keys. Claire entered my office with a final document, a transfer of ownership. The Sinclair brand was expanding, new hotels, 2 restaurants, a private members club opening in Tokyo. Want to sign it? She asked. I took the pen. Signed without hesitation. A signature I once practiced alone on napkins now closed million-dollar deals. After she left, I walked through the Sinclair Grand Lobby. The same floor where Tessa blocked me. Where my mother whispered that I embarrassed them. It looked different now. Or maybe I did. Guests moved like art through the space, confident, unaware that just months ago, I wasn't allowed through the same doors. I stepped out to the street, breathing in the evening air. A teenage girl sat nearby, waiting for someone. She was holding a laptop, papers stacked on her lap, startup pitch deck half falling apart. She looked up, tired eyes blinking. "You work here?" she asked. I smiled. "No," I said. "I own it." Her eyes widened, and I handed her my card. "Don't let them convince you you're small," I said. "They only say that when they're scared of what happens when you finally build it bigger than them." I walked away without waiting for her reply, because I had meetings to run, partnerships to review, and a skyline to keep climbing. They tried to make me feel like an outsider in my own story.
Now?
They can't even afford the cover charge.